Today we're going to be talking about multiplying and dividing fractions. Now, when we multiply fractions, you can do one of a couple of things. You can either multiply the numerators and then multiply the denominators and then reduce your answer if necessary, or you can try to cancel out before you do your multiplying. I like to do that. It makes your numbers smaller, and then if you do this correctly, you don't have to reduce in the end. So what you do is look at the numbers that are located diagonally from each other, such as 8 and 4. You ask yourself, what's the biggest number that would divide into both of them? Well, 4 will go into both. So let's divide. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 8 twice. How about 3 and 9? 3 will go into both of those. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 9 3 times. Notice I've circled my answers, so now we're just going to multiply right across with the circled numbers. So 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 3 is 6. And now the neat thing is you don't have to reduce your answer if you've canceled correctly. Okay, and here I seem to have repeated the same problem, so we won't do that again. But let's go on to this next one. Oh, wait a minute. Was it the same one? No, I'm sorry. I had switched that around. Okay. Just similar. Let's go ahead and cross cancel. What number goes into both 4 and 8? What's the biggest number? 4. So 4 goes into 4 once, and 4 goes into 8 twice. Let's do 3 and 9. 3 will go into both of those. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 9 3 times. Now let's multiply right across. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. And that cannot be reduced anymore because we canceled correctly. Let's go ahead with this one. We have 6 times 1/4. Now, since we've got a whole number multiplied by a fraction, we want to change the whole number to a fraction by putting a 1 underneath 6. So now, let's see what happens. Now, really, it doesn't make any sense to cancel the 1s because the 1 would go into both of those and we would still get 1 back. So we can just circle the 1s. Now, 6 and 4, the biggest number that will go into both of those is 2. 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Multiply right across. 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. And we end up with 3 halves, which cannot be reduced any further. If you wish to change it to a mixed number, you would say 2 goes into 3 once, with 1 left over. So we would write it as 1 1/2. Let's continue. We're going to talk about dividing. Now, the first thing we need to do is learn about what a reciprocal is. And a reciprocal basically occurs when you turn a fraction upside down. That is essentially what you're doing when you find a reciprocal. So, for instance, 1/8 reciprocal is 8 over 1. If you want the reciprocal of a whole number, such as 5, change that 5 to a fraction by putting a 1 underneath it, and then flip it over, turn it upside down. So we get 1/5. 3/4, turn it upside down, it becomes 4/3. Now, when you divide fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal. So basically, you are going to change the second fraction to its reciprocal and multiply. That's what happens when you're dividing fractions. All right? So let's try it. We've got 5/8 divided by 3/4. We keep the first fraction. We take the reciprocal of the second one, which in this case would be 4/3, and change your division sign to multiplication. And now we have a multiplication problem just like what we'd been doing. Let's see if we can cancel anything out. The biggest number that will go into both 4 and 8 is 4, so let's divide by 4. 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 8 twice. There is no number besides 1 that would divide into 5 and 3, so we're going to be stuck with keeping those numbers as they are. So let's just circle them, and we'll multiply the circled numbers right across. 5 times 1 is 5, 2 times 3 is 6. We end up with 5, 6 for an answer. Let's try this next one. Now, we have 1/2 divided by 3. 3 is not a fraction. Let's make it into 1 by slipping a 1 underneath it. Now remember, what we have to do is we have to keep the first fraction, take the reciprocal of the second fraction, which is 1/3, and change the division sign to multiplication. Now, we want to look and see if we can cancel anything out. If we look at the 2 and the 1, the only number that would divide into 2 and 1 is 1, so that wouldn't change anything. We'd still have 2 and 1 back, so let's circle them. Same with 1 and 3. There is no number besides 1 that would divide into both 1 and 3, so let's keep those. And now we'll multiply right across. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 3 is 6. So we end up with 1, 6 for our answer, which is already reduced because we canceled correctly. Let's move on to the next problem. 2/5 divided by 6/7. We keep the first fraction and take the reciprocal of the second fraction, which becomes 7/6. The division sign becomes multiplication. Let's see if we can cancel anything. The only number that would go into both 5 and 7 is 1. If we divided each by 1, we'd still get the same numbers back. So let's just circle the 5 and the 7. Let's look now at 2 and 6. The biggest number that will go into both 2 and 6 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So let's circle those answers. Now we'll multiply right across. 1 times 7 is 7. 5 times 3 is 15. That is in reduced form. So we are done with that particular problem. We're also done with this particular lesson. Thank you very much for joining me.